Right now, we are back on Collider Live with Jamal Trulove, who has one of the most unbelievable stories that I've ever heard. He's also talking about The Last Black Man in San Francisco, a movie that John Roca, who's in the house right now, said was the best independent film in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's big.
Yeah, which is huge.
It's an incredible film.
Wow.
Joe Talbot just directs one of the most beautiful films about San Francisco that's a love letter and a warning letter at the same time about gentrification and what it's doing to a lot of communities that it's pushing out so that we can look at things and think it looks clean and beautiful and what we're losing. And that film captures so much of it through one person's journey. And Jamal's role in the film is so poignant as well for so many reasons. So I'm incredibly excited to be in this room with you guys and Jamal.
I appreciate you guys for having me.
Well, was it because of that made you want to do this script? Is that basically what he just said? Was it a love letter to San Francisco that you wanted to be a part of?
Well, actually, I didn't even know about the film until they came looking for some kids at this nonprofit organization, United Players, that I was volunteering for in San Francisco. And my mentor, Rudy Corpez, he told me that they were looking for some kids or whatever for a movie. And I'm like, hey, shit, I'm a big kid, you know what I mean? How can I get in? So I went in the room and I seen Joe and Jimmy, introduced myself. Came with some good energy, like, what's up? Like, y'all got something I can read? You know, I want to be in the movie. And it was like, actually, Jamal, if you could just go ahead. And that's how Joe speaks. Yeah, Jamal, you could go ahead and take this, read this, take this for 10 minutes and come back and read it. So I came back and read, and he was like, they looked at each other like, oh, okay. So then I got called back twice to read and ultimately end up getting the role. But it wasn't. Me knowing that it's called The Last Black Man in San Francisco and aligning with my story, also feeling like I'm the last black man, it just all it all synced in well.
You never know if you don't ask, right? Like if you don't go up to them and you don't say like, "Hey, you got a part in this movie for me," if they're around or whatever.
Yeah.
They can never say no if you don't ask, and they can never say yes if you don't ask.
Right, you miss every shot that you don't shoot.
Right, exactly.
And
I miss all of them, and I shoot them.
Me too. Horrible aim. I want to talk more about the movie, but first I want to get into your story a little bit because I had not, prior to knowing you were coming in, I had not heard anything about what your story was, and I was blown away, especially because Josh and I don't know, John, if you have seen it yet, but we just watched Ava DuVernay's movie about the show about the Central Park Five. When They See Us, and it really
rocked my world. It's incredible. That first of all, what she did there was incredible, but also that whole story is just, it's like earth shattering. How much that.
Well, and the heartbreaking thing is that's only one story.
Yeah,
and
of so many.
Exactly.
Right.
That's what it made me think of, though, is that then hearing your story so soon after me watching that, how often do you feel like this is actually happening, where police are setting up people or somebody is not only wrongfully accused but wrongfully imprisoned?
Yeah, well, I believe it's happening more often than we can prove, and that's what it really comes down to. A lot of times we're convicted on circumstantial evidence, and what the DAs do, they cut their corners to try to secure these illusions of what evidence is. So, for instance, like in my case, this is one of the main things that they do is they put witnesses in witness protection, and they put them in witness protection and without the witness ever being threatened or anything of the sort. So then now it creates this illusion to the jury that that this lady or this guy had to go into witness protection, and once they see that, then they're like, there must have been a threat there of some sort. And then when the defendant doesn't testify, and you can't speak towards where this fear is necessarily coming from, it instantly gets the jury excited to feel like this person's a real threat.
There's part of your story that I'm still kind of missing, though, and it's how you actually went from the 50-year sentence and serving 6 of those years to getting out and proving that you were wrongfully imprisoned. Were you in there and then somebody else came to you and approached you and said, I think you have this case? Are you writing letters, or how does that all go down?
No, so I had a great appellate attorney by the name of Mark Zilversmith. I put the last monies I had and would have a good friend who had a couple dollars too to be able to, secure him. And from there, he did his job at the end of the day. But initially, my appeal was denied. And then we did a motion to review. On top of that, within strategy, we did a habeas corpus at the same time, so it filed it in the appellate court. So it crossed the table at the same time. So knowing that I only got convicted on what this one lady said, and that's like you got sentenced to life in prison on what one person said, and then knowing that there's other people out there that's saying I didn't do it, on top of my attorney being able to break down everything that he broke down from their opinion. They said, you know what, you're right. And it was prosecutorial misconduct that led to ineffective assistance of counsel. But, yeah.
Did you have any interaction with that woman in the last couple of years? Have you approached her, or has anything been said?
No, not at all. I mean, it came to a time where I had to deal with my reality being in prison, where I know I didn't do it. And, every year I didn't go home, I felt like, okay, I'm going to go home next year. For me to cope with actually knowing that the system is saying, nigga, you about to die in jail. So just understanding what that is, it's like I had to find a time to just forgive everybody and say, like, I'm gonna do everything I can to fight, but I can't sit here and be so down on myself to say that, if this is my destiny, this is my destiny. It's something I gotta accept. But I never gave up the fight, and I always believed that I was gonna come home.
With all of like the podcasts that we get now with true crime and shows like Making a Murderer and all this kind of thing, where it feels like a lot of people that may or may not be guilty are getting tried in the court of social media.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. Like, did that help your cause at all? Or because after watching Making a Murderer, they tried to get it to look like that the police framed Stephen Avery, right? And the lawyers even say trying to get a frame situation is almost impossible.
It's the hardest thing to do. And the thing about it is, when I was in trial my second time, so he got me back into trial. So I'm going to trial my second time. They try to give me, my same attorney, same judge, same DA. They're like, basically round two. Yeah. And they know what they had did, or whatever it may be. Now, the cops wasn't on trial. I was on trial. So it wasn't nothing about, us trying to prove in that aspect of what the police did or anything of the sort. And, when it comes down to the homicide file, we didn't have the original homicide file. So everything is like black and white. It's copies. So, we wasn't able to dig exactly how we wanted to dig. And I wasn't, all the way I was into the case, but I wasn't as deeply, into it, because I'm worrying about surviving in jail at this point.
Right.
So ultimately we was able to prove, the science behind everything in trial, and I won. So, but if you ask them, they look at it as in I got away with murder.
Yeah.
So
you think they really believe that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So when I came home, and I had a great lawyer, Kate Chatfield, and this guy named John Eldon. Shout out John Eldon. He helps out a lot of people coming home from jail who he helps them get like health care and like stuff like that. So he has connections throughout the whole country with attorneys and so forth and so on. So what he did, he took on my case, because me and my lawyer was like, man, they look what they did here. It just like it just behooved us, that this was actually, this actually went on. So we sent it to him. He sent it to every law firm in the country, and every law firm in the country actually wanted it. So we ended up running with, Barry Scheck and his team, Nick Bruston.
It's important to look at it in a nuanced ways, right? And I think this is what people sometimes forget. It's like, well, if you say something against the cops in one, you're saying something against cops in all. Or if you say something against the black man who's on trial, then you're saying against everything. This is a situation where this happened with these two cops. They did this thing. Jamal thankfully got out of jail. But these two cops never saw any punishment, retired, and never were brought up on charges. If we're going to be a fair society, then when cops do, or policemen or police women, because it was a man and woman, do these kinds of things, they need to face a penalty for this. So it discourages other cops or other police people from doing it. But unfortunately, we don't have that kind of impetus fully as a society, and that needs to change. And maybe more cases like this will eventually do that.
Right, and the thing about it, see,
because there are a lot of great, good cops, but there's some bad.
But it's interesting to hear you say too, because Jamal, I heard that in a different interview you said it was like 24 different cops that actually were part of this.
Absolutely, it was 24 different cops that was turning a blind eye, and
because they didn't want to cross the lines.
Exactly, sticking within the blue code,
But only 2 of them ended up actually retiring, so the rest are still working today?
No, 4 of them was on. 4 of them was on trial in my civil case that we was actually, and 2 of them ended up, scurrying away, which they did the most impactful shit, in the case that ended up having them actually bring the case up on me. We're dealing with this other witness that was a schizophrenic, dope fiend, went to jail with a gun and willing to say anything, to get out of jail. And what one of the officers said, that she was highly incredible. So when he turned that in, all they're going off of his word, highly incredible. Okay, now we got 2 witnesses, but that witness was never testified, never ended up. Actually, when she testified in my civil case, she said that I told them the next day that I lied. And they knew that I was schizophrenic, all of that. I told them all of that. And then her story just didn't check out in no which way. She said she seen it from 2 different angles, and each angle was so polar opposite of where the crime actually happened. And she said it was in daytime when it was at night. So it's like, none of it messed up. So if you take her away, then you still got this same witness that you didn't even charge me on from the beginning, because it wasn't enough. So you kind of mushed her to the point of actually testifying. But let me say, so like in the civil case, we're suing. We're not, charging, actually.
Right.
That's up to the DAs and stuff like that. And the reason why they're not charged for it is because the DAs look at it like you got away with murder. So, in a deposition, we asked, the DA, Linda Allen, we said, so as we sit here today, do you believe, Jamal Trulove, killed Sel Kuka? And she said, yeah, I believe he got away with murder. And it's just and so I knew that.
Did they ever find the actual murder?
Nah, they didn't care. They didn't care about the actual murder at the end of the day, and it wasn't about finding the actual murder. When it come down to them, it wasn't about that. It was about what they have and what it is.
But this is your friend that got killed. I would think you care about who the actual murderer is.
Yeah, look, and this is the thing when it come down to growing up in these rural areas in our communities and what the code is, right? So living by the code, and I know it throws off a lot of people who don't know what that is, but there's a culture. It's almost a religion to do so. So this is what I tell people. So say for instance, you guys, right? Y'all go to jail for you go to jail for something he did, right?
Don't snitch, never snitch.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you like, hold on, like fuck that. In your situation, you like, I'm not about to be in prison for something I didn't do. Okay, but now what if you do go ahead and say that he didn't? Then they say, all right, well now you got to go live in the projects for the rest of your life. You lose your job, you lose all your friends, your credibility, and your family and stuff might get killed too, and you might get shot too.
Are you saying you might know who did it?
No, it's not about me knowing who did it or anything of the sort. It's just about knowing that there's a guideline and not only a code, but it's a lifestyle change that goes against everything that you done built yourself up to actually be.
Right. I do want to get to the movie, but I have a question for you. I guess it's a $10 million question. Looking back on this, knowing how it all came full circle, that you are out now, that you are living your dream and able to pursue music and acting, was it worth the 6 years there for $10 million and to be who you are now? Would you trade those things?
Well, I will never know what I could have accomplished in those 6.5 years. And the mental anguish, I guess I was just able to surpass it. I'm just a mentally strong person. But in retrospect, when I look at everything and knowing how it turned out today, yeah, I'll run it back again. And I only say that because now in this situation, I know I could definitively change something. I could be, that vessel for a lot of the youth, a vessel for, people who don't understand what it is to actually go through prison and to hold these cops accountable. Because when it comes down to it, they wanted to settle with me, in which a lot of people settle. And then they don't never get to prove the fact that they were framed, that they were set up, that the DAs did this, that these police officers did this and stuff like that. They see $1 million. They like, shit, give me $1 million.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that you were innocent.
Yeah, no.
That's the proof.
Yeah, exactly. And
they never have to say it in court. They never have to say that they set it up or framed him or anything.
Exactly.
They get to just settle and go away.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and that's the whole thing. So when I won in my civil case, I won because of what we proved. We proved to the jury that they framed me. And that's why I was rewarded at the end of the day. Not that I was wrongfully convicted, but that I was framed. And and that's how they awarded me the $10 million. Yeah. AKA 13.1, but that's just a couple extra.
But you had a nickname on the set of the film, right? What they call? Joe was telling me they called you 10 Milli.
Yeah, 10 Milli Milli, 10 Milli Milli on a dancing. Yeah,
not a bad nickname to have.
No, I mean my name was actually Million first. You know what I mean? So everybody called me Millie. But then once I won the 10 million, it just made so much sense, and I changed, and I went ahead and went with it on the Sign of G morning show, and 10 Milli Milli.
So you get out and you are working. You book this amazing movie, The Last Black Man in San Francisco, that not only John but all the people that I've talked to who've seen it are raving about. I want to check out a quick clip and then we can talk to you about how everything went on set and how your experience during this movie was.
Okay. How'd y'all get this?
It's Jimmy's. His grandpa built it. He was the first black man in San Francisco.
That's what they call him anyways.
Oh, shit. This that house? Hey, Jimmy used to talk about this spot all the time. But you know how niggas be in a group home, over-exaggerating and shit. Trying to be all special. You weren't lying about this one though, huh, Jimmy?
You were in a group home? Yeah. For like a year.
Yeah.
You guys want to go for a schwitz?
We're coming back. I just asked you if Joe knew your situation when he was casting you, so you can...
Nah, so I didn't win my civil case yet. I was still in the process of doing so. He just knew that I was working with United Players, but now I definitely told him my story of being in prison and being wrongfully convicted, and really a lot of people just with me coming home, a lot of people they look at it like. And not to say that they did necessarily, but people know that you're from the hood, you got that aspect, and a lot of people feel like you just got away with it, And most of the time, people that come home, there's a higher percentage of people that come home who actually did it than there is that people who didn't do it.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
And that's the crazy thing about it. So, when you come home, motherfuckers usually they be like, you beat that murder, bruh. And a lot, even if somebody did do it or didn't do it, they take that in I'm sick. I got all the credit in the, period.
I think that's what's great about the movie, and it shows you these different facets of the black community, of men in the black community when they're with their boys versus when they can be more vulnerable and show this other part of themselves. And it's really phenomenal. The 4 characters that are with you as you all are on the street talking the stuff you're talking, and then what happens with you later on in the film, which I don't want to spoil.
No spoilers, but I do want to know from Jamal a little bit. Can you tell us what the movie is about briefly? People who don't know what the whole situation is. Josh and I, who are definitely going to go see it, but anybody at home who's wondering if they should see this, and it's coming out this weekend. What is the movie about?
It's a movie about gentrification, and based on the story of Jimmy Fails, and it just there's a lot of different aspects when it comes down to the how black people are perceived in America in general. And especially what makes it that much special is the last black man in San Francisco, because a lot of times, and I done told people about the movie, and they'll be like, "There's black people in San Francisco," because it's not marketed like that. And when you understand,
that's a real question you've gotten.
Yes.
People really have said to you, "There's black people in San Francisco."
Because it's like, what do they know about? They know, no offense, they know about San Francisco as homosexuality, white business, tech, and privilege. They don't think of black.
And the
right?
Asian community.
And of course,
Right.
in the Asian community,
But
Chinatown,
they
so
don't
forth,
think
so
about-
on.
right.
But I lived in New York before. When you go as far as New York, you could come off with this tough bravado, or you could be rapping, and they just don't believe you. You're not believable. But now, let you be talking that same shit and say you from Oakland. They're like, oh, yeah, you're with it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And understanding, like, the same thing that's going on in Oakland is definitely going on in San Francisco, and really a lot more, especially when it comes down to homelessness, when it comes down to, drug use and stuff like that. In San Francisco, it's 7 by 7.
Yeah.
It's 7 by 7. It's small. Oakland is way bigger than what San Francisco is. But the thing is that San Francisco is the second most visited place in the country other than Disneyland. If they say a quadruple homicide happened in the Fillmore district, that's getting nowhere past local news. Now, if that happens in Oakland, it's going to have it on Nightline or something like that,
Interesting.
What about your character in this movie? Because John was telling me that he's blown away by your performance. What's your role?
Well, my character Kofi, he's me growing up, in San Francisco, really trying to fit in. Trying to find your face, trying to find who you are in a city where you're taught everything good inside the house, but once you step outside in this rural area, I'm from Sunnydale Projects, where it's like it's a troubled community for sure, but it's still my community at the end of the day, and you end up having to really try to fit into what that is. And so you end up battling with that, but then you step out. So me personally, and within my character, once you try to step outside of that community into San Francisco that everybody knows, you're just, being looked at as the black guy. Now you got to try to fit in on what that is. Now I was able to to do so, and then in the film you'll kind of see what that actually is within these certain relationships that I end up having, so forth and so on. But it's almost a character change, and I don't want to give nothing up, but you'll actually see what that is. And somebody who's really thinking enough and really dived into the movie, then you'll end up seeing what that exactly is, and how I play a big part of the movie.
Do you think that the gentrification in San Francisco is necessarily a bad thing?
Well, I say to a degree, yes, it is a bad thing. Now, the only thing that I guess you could say that's not bad is it being more lower on crime, right? Mm-hmm. So, but now how are they identifying crime with how many black people is in San Francisco?
Totally agree.
At the end of the day, so I think that's what's wrong with it when it comes down to it. But San Francisco, black people helped build San Francisco,
right.
And when you think about the Fillmore district and the jazz, the blues, and what that was, it was rich in culture, and a lot of people came to San Francisco to get away from wherever they was at, to come and be like, you could be whatever. And, now you see that almost disappear, and now people are just, that come in, and I don't knock nobody being ambitious coming into to our city and stuff like that, but I think it's just more so the opportunities, being able to stay in San Francisco has been, done away with when it comes down to, legislation, them building stuff up. The median rate is like at 3,100 to actually stay in San Francisco.
Ridiculous, yeah.
You know, and the breaking down the projects, like that's a good thing. But now at the same time, are you breaking them down to replenish, you know, the black community, which it was in a better light instead of it looking like, you know, being an old military base and it's looking like, you know, it's a war.
Because we were talking about before you came on earlier in the show, and I was talking about that California in general, but San Francisco specifically was a destination for people that were trying to be something that maybe they weren't allowed to be in Middle America or something like that, and the opportunity was there. And I think the gentrification in everywhere you go in a lot of major cities where they are pricing out artists and people that build and culture a community is really tough. It's really, really hard. In San Francisco, I watched a documentary called San Francisco 2.0 legitimately about all of this. It's a hard thing to watch because a lot of the people that created San Francisco can no longer live there.
Well, and that's what the movie touches on and highlights and educates you on when you're watching it, right? Through the character of the preacher and other people telling you about what black people did in San Francisco and the ports and the ships and what they built when the Asian community was put in internment camps by Roosevelt during World War II. Black people came across the country to take those spots and try to build up the city themselves and build the community, and then eventually they were moved out for gentrification. And so you're seeing this process and what you end up losing in the city. And Joe does a fantastic job, and Jimmy as well, in the film showcasing that.
You just got to speak to them on Deep Cut coming tomorrow.
Yeah. Tomorrow, my episode of the Deep Cut drops. I speak with the director of the film, Joe Talbot, and the star, Jimmy, for about 45 minutes, talking about how they came up with the movie, what they discovered making the movie, and like what it is what their point was about making the movie and what they want people to get out of it. It's a great. They're just so fantastic, and they're so chill. I mean, you were imitating Joe earlier. Like Weed looks at Joe and goes, "Damn, that's chill." Like he is so chill. So I had to constantly get them closer to the mic because they're like, "Yeah, man, like we were doing this, and then like we put it together. It was so cool."
Yeah.
So it's like it's you know, it was one of the most challenging interviews I had in terms of trying to get them to be more on the mic. But trust me, what they talk about is incredible. So
you mentioned that takeaway, and I'm curious from you, Jamal. What do you feel like you want the audience to leave feeling or knowing that they might not have going into it?
I mean, I want people to. I want a thought to be provoked. A thought about what's actually going on in America in general, because this ain't only a San Francisco issue. Yeah. You know, it's an Oakland issue also. It's in every city beyond. You know. Just knowing San Francisco in the past 30 years, you know, 30 years ago, we was as rich as, you know, like 20% black people. And now you look at it and we only have 2.5% black people. And then, but listen to this. You hear about Oakland, and Oakland is, you know, I go to Oakland to get away with being black. You know what I mean? Because in San Francisco, if you black, it's like, you know, you from the hood, you from the projects, and the police, they're yanking you over. They're trying because you ain't got no license, you're smoking weed, stuff like that. And that's another thing that got a lot of black people out of San Francisco, going to jail all the time, and most of them probably in jail now. Yeah. You know, just understanding what that is. But now you go over to Oakland, and Oakland was rich with black folks, Black Panthers. But Oakland only has like 5%, 4.5% black people in it now.
Crazy.
And it's just, you know, it's crazy. That's like the brother city to San Francisco because too many people are coming. So they're like, all right, I'm just a BART ride away, you know, so I can work in San Francisco and just take the BART across and still enjoy the sun, still enjoy like I'm in a San Francisco vibe, you know, like Meredith. So it's a good vibe, you know what I mean? I understand what that is, but their median rate is like $2,700, you know, now. And, you know, Oakland. Yeah, in Oakland. Wow.
Crazy.
It's just crazy numbers.
Well, Jamal Trulove, thank you so much for sharing your story. Coming in,
you.
The Last Black Man in San Francisco, A24 Films is releasing June 7th. That's this weekend, so go check it out. And make sure you check out Deep Cut so that you can hear more from the director and the stars of this movie, because it's definitely one that Josh and I will be talking about next week.
Absolutely. And I just want to say, everybody make sure you get out and watch this film. This film, you know, make this film, you know, something that transcends into schools. You know, they need to have these students watch what this is to educate, make it where it could get bigger and broader than, you know, the select theaters that we're releasing in right now, which we plan on, you know, extending it, but we just got to get out and watch it.
We need a wider release. I